Film, television, commercials, new media. You are listening to Producer's Pal, unmasking the business of filmmaking and sharing killer advice from seasoned pros. And now your host, Joshua Brown.
Welcome to Producer's Pal episode number 17. I'm Joshua Brown. This episode is sponsored by Indie Film Finance Guide. Learn more at producerspal.com/finance guide. On the podcast today, the Digital Bolex team, Joe Rubenstein and Elle Schneider. They talk about their new D16 Digital Bolex camera and the implications of 4K in new media. All right, welcome to the podcast, Joe Rubenstein and Elle Schneider. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Awesome. So, for those of you, for those in the audience watching or listening who don't know you guys, how can we sum up what you guys do?
We are working with many partners, software and hardware, to create a digital Bolex, which was a 16 millimeter popular 16 millimeter film camera. So we're creating a digital version that that can use the same 16 millimeter lenses that I love and other people love from a lot of them were made in the 60s and 70s and 50s on a modern digital cinema camera that gives you high quality raw format digital output and pretty pictures.
Yeah, very cool. So, how long have you guys been working on this for now?
2 to 3 years.
Really? And, yeah. And the Kickstarter was, if I recall, a little over a year ago now, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys were working on this before you even did a Kickstarter for it?
Oh, I mean, the Kickstarter was the tail end of the development process.
Oh,
the
wow.
Kickstarter was at the point where we could not continue further without funding.
Wow. So what's your guys' background? I mean, what you were working on the camera for a while. What's the background with you guys?
I am a director and cinematographer, and I learned about the project probably just about 2 years ago. And Joe had been working on it for about 6 months before that. He was a former cinematographer who had founded a photo booth business. And the Digital Bolex sort of came out of hardware he wanted to develop for the photo booth business that then became its own product.
Nice. Okay, so Joe, you were basically working on you were working on, I assume, a camera for the photo booth, and then you decided the idea just came to you. What was the deal with that?
Yeah, so I was a cinematographer for low budget indie features for 5 or 6 years when I first got out to LA, and after I couldn't book any more jobs in film, I sort of moved into this other still photography land that had this raw format that was that was nice again, and I was having trouble getting images I liked on video cameras. So I built a business with another business partner in still photography using RAW, and I wanted to migrate that into a video booth business. And so I was looking for a camera under $10,000 that shot RAW format moving images.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it just didn't exist.
Right.
So I said, well, how hard would it be to make this? And in my research, looking into how hard it would be to make it, I realized that there were a lot of other people looking for the same thing.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, what was your specific need for the video in the photo booth, or is that something you're still working on? Like, what was the need for the video?
Yeah, the intention was to make a video booth.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it was like the photo booth but for video.
Exactly.
Okay, very cool. I like that. And are you still working on that?
I have since left that company.
Oh, okay.
Sold my share of that company, but after this camera comes out, I may work with them again to try and develop that.
Very cool. So just to basically wrap it up, you're designing a cinema camera, and it's going to be a Super 16 sensor, and you're going to have the highest quality image that you can get out of that. And that's what you guys are working on.
Exactly.
And about how far along are you in the process?
We're very close to shipping cameras. We're beta testing right now, so we're just sort of running the camera into the ground, trying to destroy it in as many ways as we possibly can to work out all the kinks and bugs before we ship.
Yeah, I saw some of that footage from the Salton Sea. You said it was like 105 degrees out there.
107, yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't run at that temperature.
Yeah, it was unpleasant for us to be there.
And how long did you have the camera running?
We ran it for like an hour at a time, and it was fine.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Wow. So I just kind of want to get to know you guys a little bit more, so our audience can kind of see your path, how you're getting to where you're at here. So, Joe, what's your story? Like, how were you born in LA? Did you study engineering? What's the story here?
I did not study engineering at all. I was born in Florida and went to school in Savannah, Georgia for cinematography and fine art, but I was always like one of those kids who took his toys apart and tried to figure out how they worked and put them back together.
Yeah.
So I was always interested in that and the sciences and stuff like that. And even as a cinematographer, I was often working with companies to try and push things a little bit further.
Yeah.
So as an example, when I first came out to LA, I was seeing the images off of a video tap from film cameras.
Right.
Really liking the look of the video tap on a film camera better than I'd liked any of the images on a video camera.
Oh, yeah.
Talking to the Panavision techs about why that was, and they were like, "Well, you're looking at a ground glass, and a nicely resolved image on ground glass." And I worked with Kish Optics to develop what at the time didn't exist, which was a 35 adapter.
Oh, okay.
And we shot a feature using that 35 adapter. And
to the video tap?
Well, no. So a 35 adapter, there's a lot of companies that make them or made them. I think I don't know if they're popular anymore. But for a camera like the DVX 100,
right? Okay.
Yeah, you would stick something on the front that had a ground glass inside it, and then you could put, cinema lenses on the front.
Yeah, okay.
And in our case, we had to mount the camera upside down because the lens inverted the image.
Yeah, nice.
And so I've always been like a little bit technical and kind of trying to push some of the boundaries of technology that was available at the time.
Very cool. And that's where you went from your cinematography to the photo business, and then you're now doing this.
Exactly. So in the photo business, we actually built a lot of custom hardware and wrote a lot of custom software. And I didn't do any of the software writing, and I didn't do a whole lot of the hardware building, but I did work with engineers during that process in order to understand our goals, what we needed to get to, and went through a 5-year iteration process.
Like as a project manager?
Basically.
Yeah. Very cool.
And figuring out how to work with engineers and things like that.
Very cool. And Elle, what's your story? I didn't get to talk to you very much when I met Joe. I can't remember exactly the story. So what's your story? How did you grow up here, or are you a transplant as well?
New York. I came out here to go to USC in 2004. I was in the screenwriting program and interactive media program there that had just been started. The interactive program is probably one of the coolest academic programs out there these days. If you're a gamer of any taste, there are a lot of my co-alumni projects that are really awesome. But I was doing a lot of user interface there because it was discovered at the time. I was the only person in the entire department that knew how to do user interface, so I was hired full-time by Virtual World on the recommendation of our chair while I was still in school. And so I luckily managed to kind of breeze through most of the recession that was going on while I was graduating, and eventually the company that I was working for had to lose a bunch of staff, myself included, but by that time I was wanting to focus doing freelance, directing, cinematography, just filmmaking in general. I've done a lot of mostly documentary shooting. I have shot almost 100 interviews in the past 2 years for a couple different feature films. And
In the past 2 weeks, is that what you just said?
no, 2 years.
Oh, okay. I was like, what?
I had a film that was just at South by Southwest, I Am Divine, that I shot part of, and
Okay.
I have another film in post right now called That Guy Dick Miller, and I just try to keep pretty busy. So in this past 2 weeks, I've shot on 7 different projects.
Wow. Is this
Yeah.
mostly independent stuff or commercial work, or?
It's generally independent because the Digital Bolex project right now is my main priority.
Right.
I think that guy Dick Miller will probably do a festival run, as maybe a couple of the small things that I'm directing shorts wise, but a lot of it is shooting like second unit for independent features or documentary interviews. I do a lot of work for DVD and Blu-ray releases.
Right.
So interviews that go on special features.
And your UI design, is that web or actual programs, or just in general?
I would say it's in general.
Okay, so you just you kind of consult on it.
Yeah, I mean, I designed the menu system for the camera, for example.
Nice.
And,
Okay.
I didn't program it. We have programmers that are doing that, but the structure of the menu and the graphics and much of the text.
Mm-hmm.
And I also designed the website, but luckily we now have someone who is co-programming
Yeah.
with us, who's taking a lot of that off of me.
So that's a good question. What are your 2 separate roles then? I assume you 2 are the project leads for the Digital Bullets project. So what are your 2 main tasks that you guys take care of?
That's sort of a hard question because we're a really small company, and so we're all doing various things. For example, Joe's the CEO of the company, but he's not necessarily just sitting behind a desk chair.
Right.
He's coming out and doing, test footage. A lot of the test footage we've posted so far, he shot all of. There's a lot of, just picking up the slack, because essentially in the LA office, it's just the 2 of us. We also have a full-time assistant, but for example, I do website, but I also write and design the manual and design the boxes for the various products that are to be released first, and the menus, as I said, and I do a lot of the editing for stuff that's going to be put up online. Joe writes a ton of blog posts. I generally edit those and contribute to them as well. The last blog post that we did, I think the 4K one, was
I read that.
the first official one that we did as like a joint. Was it not that one?
It wasn't that one. It was the next one.
It was the next one, yeah. Because basically, like, we've, it's always like what is our top priority? So there's always things getting left. Like, essentially we both collaborate on a lot of the blog posts, but we either post them as me or as Joe most of the time in the past, just because to make a joint account was like something that we hadn't done yet. But now I think we're going to be posting a lot of stuff from both of us, I guess.
Well, that's a good question that I'd like to pose to you guys, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. Because first off, I met Joe for the first time after following the project for forever now, and then meeting him at the Hub LA at this marketing event, and then I got to see the camera, hold it in my hand, and then I went and checked out your blog, and you guys had posted 2 different things about knowing the markets, and then about 4K if you even need it and that sort of thing. And I thought those were 2 very interesting things, and coming from like a producing perspective, I thought they were really interesting things. So now your camera is 2K, and if you don't know, 2K is the resolution of your frame size, essentially. Talking to the people that might be listening. So a lot of companies like Sony and Red and others are pushing for 4K as a standard for capture, or even higher, and they want 4K to be a distribution standard as well. And you guys have 2K. And now I know you guys have been getting a lot of flack for this, but Let's hear it. Why 2K, and what's your argument for it?
Well, the biggest thing that is not it's not a one is better than the other or anything kind of like that. 4K definitely has its place if you have clients that you work for that demand 4K, or you do a lot of reframing in post or something like that. Then
Right.
4K has a lot of useful aspects. But the point of the 4K post was that it's not a necessity at this time, because basically, as filmmakers, we make films for an audience,
Right.
and to really understand your audience or your market is what empowers you to make good choices, and that's what the Know Your Market one was more about. But basically, the market, at least here in North America, United States, and Canada, is that we just recently, just last year, hit 75% market acceptance for HD.
Right. 1080p.
Or 720.
Yeah. Or so. Yeah.
So the market acceptance just hit 75%, meaning 75% of people in North America now have HD TVs in their house, meaning 25% still just have SD TVs in their house. And
the amount that have the 4K is like infinitesimal right now.
Less than 1%, I think.
Yeah, much less actually. But this acceptance of HD took 17 years.
Wow.
It took 17 years to get to 75% market acceptance. Now currently 4K is at 0.1%, 1/10% market acceptance in North America, and it's projected to reach 1.5%.
Projected by whom?
By a whole bunch of these companies that I can't remember the exact. We have quotes. If you look up our books,
I'll make sure to link it.
There's links and stuff. Yeah, but there are these companies that basically their whole job is to read and try and predict, how markets behave as far as electronics and that kind of things go. Right. So this is something like the television something buyers something.
Right. That's their job.
It's their job to predict this stuff, and they generally predict it. They're generally a little bit too optimistic. For instance, one of these groups predicted that Blu-ray discs would be outselling DVDs by 2012, but in fact, DVDs are still 4-to-1 outselling Blu-rays.
Seriously?
In 2001,
I didn't know that.
So every one Blu-ray that is sold at Walmart, 4 DVDs of the same title generally are sold. Yeah. So people are still buying DVDs a lot more than they're buying Blu-rays. So, and they're predicting that it would have surpassed DVD by now, but it's still 4 times behind. So they're predicting 1.5% market acceptance by 2017.
1.5%.
1.5%
in 4 years.
In 4 years, meaning the 75% mark, the mark that you actually need to hit in order for
saturation,
for like companies like Netflix and iTunes to really care about it, and for us as independent filmmakers to really care about it. 75% for 4K is at least 10 years off, if not much more, if ever.
Okay.
It's totally 100% possible that we never actually hit 75%, or it's like so far in the future that the technology has so fundamentally changed, it's not even, considered, even, not even thought about in these traditional resolution forms.
Yeah, and that sounds like a lot of stats being thrown out, but sort of the bottom line there that is the reason that we wrote the post is that there are a lot of companies that it's in their best interest to push the technology and make it seem popular, but there's always a danger for independent filmmakers of essentially being told that the tools you currently hold in your hand are worthless, and what you actually need in order to be successful is something that is constantly just over the horizon for most people. And what it does is it perpetuates this fear that your project isn't good enough and you can't be a professional, and these fears sort of weigh on you until you kind of discount yourself to the point where you can't actually make your project because you're too afraid of what if it's not the right resolution, what if it's the right post workflow. And I think that really cripples a lot of people. I think you saw that most drastically with the change from SD to HD in terms of prosumer level and cameras, because suddenly film festivals would not take anything in SD, and that really cut out a very large amount of independent filmmakers. Well, now HD is much more affordable through the DSLR revolution, but you're still seeing that again is, you know, groups that are the gatekeepers trying to make some kind of demarcation of this means, you know, you must be this high resolution to be professional, and that's kind of complete bullshit. It's not true. We're at the point visually where, you know, a 2K image on a 4K TV, first of all, looks fantastic. That's something that Ari was demoing at NAB. They had some of the Sony TVs in there, but they were playing Skyfall and some other projects, and they're like, look, even just up-resing this, you cannot see the difference. Your eyes cannot see the difference. And one of the bigger stats is that it takes something like a 60-inch screen before your eyes are able to start seeing the difference between 2K and 4K. And realistically, most people don't have TVs that size at home. And you know, if it looks good up to 59 inches, what is the impetus as a consumer to buy a 4K TV? You know, is it necessary? I still have, you know, my smaller TV is a 720 TV because it's only 26 inches. And at 26 inches, I can't see the difference between 720 and 1080 from, you know, a reasonable viewing distance. So why would I even upgrade that to something bigger?
And I'll share a secret. I have a 52-inch plasma, and it's 720p, and I bought it last year. I'm telling you, like, I mean, I love the idea of 4K, right? Because you have, it's more room to play, right? And you have, quote unquote, more quality and yada yada. And in fact, the last film I shot was on a Red Epic, and we shot at 5K, right? And it's supposed to be going to the Odemax 4K content distribution platform. Well, my computer literally cannot output the final render. It won't do it. It literally will not do it. I've tried over and over and changed it. It physically will not render the output. So I have to go somewhere.
And I would imagine that you have a pretty decent computer
It's a little older now, but it's a 17-inch MacBook Pro, which they phased out like 2-3 years ago now. So it's not super old, but it was powerful, you know, for its time 3 years ago. And you would think that it could at least render the footage, but no, it literally won't even render it. So it's just like it still feels to me like it's still the cusp of technology for, I guess, our level of independent filmmaking, you know?
And how many people do you think have one of those red players that can even see your film? So likely your film is going to be shown somewhere else in addition to this, right? Because less than 5,000 people will ever see it on a red player, probably, or anytime soon, right? So where are you going to show your 5K film?
Right.
And wherever that is probably going to be in 1080p. It's probably not going to be in 5K. So is it worth it to shoot in 5K?
Well, I'd like to play devil's advocate for a little bit here. I mean, obviously we have stats which are historically accurate. Whatever. I want to talk about, like, now we've got codec technology like H.265 coming out, which is, to put it in layman's terms, you know, it's half the size for twice the quality, right? So we can get you know 4K for about the same as we're pushing 1080p right now, in theory. And so like people watching on YouTube can in theory be watching 4K at that bit rate now.
But what screen are they looking at?
Well, exactly. And that's where, that's why there's a consumer push for that technology, and why you can buy the 4K TVs now for $800 and that sort of thing.
But the 4K TVs you can buy for $800 are like the 36-inch ones that you can't actually see 4K on.
But when has that stopped any consumer ever from wanting the latest, greatest thing?
Oh, every time, all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah, like most consumers do not accept technology until they have to, or until there's something that is a bar for them.
Generally, until there's like a major format change, you hold on to that VHS player until you really, really need to buy the DVD player. In some cases, you still use the VHS player. That's like a hip thing with the kids these days.
Is it?
But there are plenty of, similar things. I still use the iPod Nano a lot of the time. I know other people that use the regular iPods because as long as it, doesn't skip on their jog, like, why do they need to upgrade? They have one MP3 player, like, why do they need another one?
It's so anti-consumerist.
It's not, though, but, the other thing is that in North America, we've been going through a recession for a really long time, and, most people are not running out to buy brand new TVs.
We actually, this is the big thing, is there was a huge boom in TV sales last year, in 2012.
Right.
But it was slumped for like 4 or 5 years before that. And it looks like they're going into another slump. So Sony and Panasonic and all these people that make these giant TVs and make millions and millions of units and make crazy loads of money off of selling TVs are staring at stats that say, look, in the next 5 years, you're going to see another huge slump. And you're not going to make as much money as you did in the last couple of years. And they're going, how do I figure out how to sell more TVs, right? And they're trying like crazy to push anything, 3D, whatever. Right. And in this case, 4K, in order to sell more TVs. And that's their whole push. They're making cameras because they're hoping that'll help sell TVs, really. Because they don't sell as many cameras as they sell TVs.
And they just announced their new prosumer cameras a couple, like today or yesterday.
Their new 8-bit 4K TVs.
8-bit, yeah.
Why do we want an 8-bit 4K camera? Like, that's
more
doesn't
Ks.
make sense to me at all.
That's what we're saying. For us, 12-bit 2K is going to look way, 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 way better than 4K.
Okay. So tell us. I mean, not everyone is as technically as you guys, and I understand it a little bit because I've done coloring and that sort of thing. So explain to us, what is 8-bit versus 12-bit, and why is that more important in your opinion than 2K versus 4K?
So bit rate is the amount of information that is being transmitted at any one time, or in each frame, let's say.
Okay.
And basically, when you have lower bit rates, like 8-bit is actually pretty low. It's like the minimum you need to create an image that is semi-acceptable. And you get a lot of banding, and you get a lot of weird image artifacts. You get all this stuff that looks bad.
And it's a limited color palette.
And it's a very limited color. It's 16 million colors, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not that many. Yeah, but when you go up to 10-bit, it jumps to like hundreds of millions of colors, and then when you jump to 12-bit, you're at billions of colors. So by comparison, 8-bit is stingy color-wise. So when you go to the movie theater, you're almost always these days watching, like 65% of the time you go to a movie, you're watching a 2K image.
Right.
But it's a 12-bit 2K image.
Right.
Whereas at home, you're watching an 8-bit
That's correct.
1080 image, which is very similar in resolution, but looks completely different than what you saw at the movie theater.
Yeah.
And it's because of the bit depth, not because of the resolution.
Right.
So for the past 10 years, we've been proving bit depth is more important than resolution for pure image quality.
And again, I just want to play devil's advocate because I want to give you guys a platform to talk about your thing. So you've got your 2K, you said 12-bit, is that it? Okay, so your digital Bolex is 2K 12-bit. And in your post about, I think that was the one when you were talking about your market. You stated that most of the people who will be seeing independent films will either be in extremely select theater settings or in the home. And you just stated that the home is 8-bit typically, and 10-bit is still very exclusive. So why would I be shooting at 12-bit, and why would that matter if I'm going to be, the largest part of my audience is going to see it at 8-bit?
Well, and that's true. The 12-bit gives you more color range to be able to sort of compress your image
There we go.
into the 8-bit.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
isn't.
if you start out with the 8-bit, you're sort of crippled from the get-go, and you run into all sorts of problems. For example, when you're color grading and there is no information there for you to change, and that's how you get banding.
Yep.
And other artifact problems. But once you're able to finish your image in 12 bits, the data loss that essentially will occur from down-resing it to be able to be viewed on a smaller monitor with less resolution is more faithful to your 12-bit.
Yeah, basically when you shoot 12-bit, especially RAW, you have a lot of information to kind of render your image out of. So you're going to render an 8-bit image out of it, but starting from a more robust file. And it works the same way with 4K and 2K or 4K and 1080. If you start from 4K, you have more space to play with.
Right.
But in our opinion, having more colors is more important than more space.
Okay. And I would typically agree for the most part. I mean, I've seen some stuff in 4K, and it has been great. But most of the stuff I've seen in 2K, and it's still brilliant. I just went to the theater up on Sunset. It's the Sundance theaters, and I'm pretty sure they've got the 2K projectors there. And I just saw their Only God Forgives, and it was so crisp. It was so incredibly crisp, and the color information was just beautiful, and there was no banding, and I wasn't seeing any weird stuff, and it was gorgeous. And it's not 4K, so I mean, for me, I was like, this is beautiful, and it was actually more beautiful than most films I'd seen on the giant theaters projected at your average movie theater, and that for me was like, wow, this is it when you can get that crisp of an image. But I don't know if that's going to be the 4K or the 12-bit or whatever it is.
Yeah, sharpness has a lot more to do with local contrast, color, than it does with actual number of pixels.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you have your local sharpness dialed in properly, you get the feeling of a sharper image without having the more pixels, and even if you have the more pixels, if you don't have the local contrast, it doesn't feel sharp.
Yeah.
So that's really where your sharpness lies. And the crazy thing about the 4K distribution side is that, and I've asked my friends that work in Hollywood, big budget movies, worked on the recent, what's the monster movie from Pacific Rim?
Oh yeah,
Stuff like that, right? And that's one of the movies listed as a 4K movie,
right?
Because it could have been shot in 4K, but he was like, no, it was finished in 2K. Because the render times on a giant monster at 2K is, for a single computer node, it's like 2 to 3 hours per frame.
Yeah.
But for a single computer node at 4K, it's like 2 to 3 days per frame.
Yeah.
And it's such a difference in render time that they still render the entire movie in 2K, and then they just blow it up. Same thing with Skyfall.
Right.
Skyfall was distributed in 4K.
No.
Yeah, it was. It's one of the 4K listed movies.
Even though 2K upres.
Even though it was shot in 1080p.
It was shot in 1080p, and then they
shot it in 1080p.
I thought it was shot in 2K or
1080p.
That's right, because it was the Arri Alexa.
Yeah.
And the Alexa shoots 2K. He just chose 1080p for whatever reason. He shot it in 1080p, and they blew it up to 4K for distribution, and no one could tell.
Yeah, I know.
Not one person was like, "Hey, that's 1080p."
I know a guy who hosts a podcast. Well, actually, I'll say it because they actually talked about it on their podcast. But Mike Seymour talked about it on his, I think it was the Red Center podcast, where he talked about that very thing. And he literally said, like, it looked just brilliant. He even said that.
Yeah.
He said it looked amazing. It looked great
Yeah.
blown up. I don't want to attribute it to him because I can't remember now if it was Mike or Jason, but one of those guys said something to that effect, and I respect their opinion a lot. So I was like, oh wow. But that also has to do a lot with the way it was shot. I mean, there was masterful people working on that project,
Yes.
very controlled. They knew that they were going to do that before they shot it. So,
and this is the essence: is the person behind the camera shooting the images makes more of a difference than
Amen.
your resolution and which camera you shoot on and all that other stuff. Like if
And
you
then there's
have a
story.
master cinematographer behind, well, yeah, I'm just talking about image
Yeah.
quality. But if you have a master cinematographer behind a 2K camera, it's still going to look better than somebody who's not as good behind a 4K camera. And I think everybody kind of accepts that.
Yeah.
I think there's just this
I think
insecurity that pushes
right.
them
I
toward the
think there's a lot of people that want sort of the secret sauce that will make them the best.
yeah.
And they think that having the latest new technologically advanced camera is suddenly going to make them into a cinematographer. I mean, there was very famously that Facebook group, my mother bought me a, therefore I'm a cinematographer. And it was a running joke for a long time. And I've certainly encountered that professionally when trying to hire DPs. I have found almost universally that people with the most expensive camera packages were the least creative
Really?
DPs. Yeah. Because, it's often people who have the money to invest in these
Sure.
and then they're paying off their investment. But, most of the guys at the ASC have told us, we don't really own big cameras like that. There's no reason for us to do that,
Yeah.
Certainly, many of them have smaller cameras or 16 cameras or things that they can shoot little personal projects on. But generally, you don't find ASC guys owning Alexas or owning Epics or anything like that because they want to use the tool that works best for their particular project.
Very cool. Now, are you guys going to, remember when, the DSLR revolution started and Vincent Laforet put out his Reverie, right? Are you guys going to create a project package for the D16 when it comes out? Are you going to have some sort of a launch, some sort of party, or is it just going to appear?
Oh, I mean, we actually are going to have a party for our Kickstarter backers, but
Nice.
we've been in kind of pre-pro for a Western short for a while, but we'll be releasing projects, consistently up
Nice.
to that point. Because a lot of what we're doing is also just showing the progression of how we're getting to where we are. Because this is a crowdsourced thing, a lot of people are very interested in seeing that progression rather than, waiting for the Wizard of Oz to show up and startle everybody.
Yep.
And I think if you're asking, are we going to work with famous DPs and famous filmmakers in order to put some kind of high-end project out, the answer is definitely yes. We would like to do that. We've been talking to lots of different filmmakers, and there's a lot of people interested. So,
Very cool.
So I don't know exactly what yet, but we will definitely be putting the camera in the hands of talented, established
And
filmmakers.
it's helpful because one, they're good at what they do. Two, they typically have a following of sorts and they're respected. So it benefits everybody, and it's just good smart business to do that.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So, Joe, Elle, what I want to do is just begin to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I've got a bunch of quick-fire questions for you. They're just kind of human interest things. So, I just kind of want to get to know you guys real quick through these fast questions. So, Joe, knowing what you know now about your career path and where it's taken you, if you could start over, what would you have done differently?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it was good. It was a good, I went from editor to independent filmmaking DP to, I don't know, entrepreneur, and it was good. I think it was a good path for me. So I don't know that I'd change anything.
Yeah, you're happy with your life.
Pretty much.
That's not a bad place to be. And Elle?
Same question?
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, you've gone through this going to UCLA, right? Is that what it was?
USC.
USC. Sorry, I'm not from here, so I kind
I mean, I think one thing that came out of my USC upbringing that has changed there now, but is a little unfortunate, is that we were stressed never to put our work online, and that
Really?
putting your work online would mean you were unprofessional and no one would take you seriously because there was a lot of emphasis on debut, essentially.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of my classmates who have become notable kind of said, thanks but no thanks, and started putting their stuff up online right away.
Yeah.
And it got them a lot of feedback, and they've since gone on to make careers out of YouTube, and some of them are extremely well known. And if I were to change one thing, I would have embraced new media, because I think I, like a lot of independent filmmakers, have sort of this want to cling on to some kind of feature film, trajectory, even though the landscape for media is changing so much. And I would just say I wish that I was a little bit more open and experimenting with different formats.
Yeah, very cool. It's gonna be really interesting because it's still shaking up right now. We still don't quite know what's happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the largest changes are still yet to come in the next.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
10
Absolutely.
years.
Okay, Joe, what is your best piece of advice for filmmakers?
Just get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Just make films, and whatever equipment you have, whatever stories are going on in your brain, just do it as much as you can, and put it out there, like you're saying, because if you make it and you hold on to it and don't show it to people, it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
Make it and get it out there.
And Elle, have you received any good advice that you've really taken to heart and put into your own work that you'd like to share with us?
I would just say, don't be afraid, because a lot of people like to hold on to projects, or if they see something wrong or something is flawed and not as they exactly imagined it, they're afraid of getting the criticism that they know that they're going to get. But that's, how you become a filmmaker. You are going to suck. There's that very common adage of you have to put in 10,000 hours to be good at anything, and you have to put in the 10,000 hours. You have to make shitty YouTube videos. You have to make bad student films. You have to learn why a cut works or why a cut doesn't work, or why a shot feels pretty to you or why it feels bad to you. And the only way that you can learn that is by doing. So just work constantly and you will find yourself informed.
And I guess maybe the one other thing I would say is learn the business side. You don't have to learn every aspect of it, but that knowing your market thing is learn what the concepts are behind how you make money, and learn that, because it used to be that you could be a filmmaker or you would be the business person, and never the twain should meet. But I think the future is more they're together.
Absolutely.
You're filmmaker and you also have to be the business person.
Yep, and that is exactly what Producers Pal is all about, is navigating that new landscape and figuring out how we actually do it. So I really appreciate you guys saying that, and I really liked your blog on knowing your market, and I want to write something like that or steal it from you guys. We'll see what we do, but
Feel free.
Okay, so Joe and Elle, both of you guys, what is your favorite movie or TV or even a YouTube channel if you have one?
Well, my favorite movie is Blade Runner. My favorite TV show is probably either, I gotta say it's like a run-up, Twin Peaks, 24, Law and Order, or X-Files. I'm a big procedural kind of person.
Yeah.
And, web series, I watch my friends. I watch Freddie W. and I watch 5-second films and Corridor Digital. And there's a lot to be learned from all three groups.
Very cool. And Joe?
It's such a difficult question. I never know how to answer this.
You can only pick one. No.
Yeah, one of the things that connected with me the most was that single season TV show Freaks and Geeks.
Oh yeah.
I love that, and I love I watch a lot of independent horror movies on Netflix type of stuff.
Okay.
So I could, I guess I'll go back to the root of that, which is of course Evil Dead 2 for me. So,
Okay.
so
Very
maybe
cool.
if I would say the one movie that has influenced me the most would probably be Evil Dead 2.
Very cool. And do you guys have a movie or a TV show coming out, or that you know about, that maybe even a friend's making, that you're really excited about?
My friends who have a company called Coat Wolf Productions just started shooting today their next feature, Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins, which is going to be amazing. It's sort of like a Mad Max meets like 1980s side-scrolling video game.
Whoa.
It's a crazy concept.
Nice.
It's way out there, and I know that's going to be amazing. They previously made this film Bellflower that was just
Yes.
excellent.
Yeah.
A lady DP friend just shot a feature that raised money on Kickstarter called June Adrift. She had previously shot Zero Charisma that was at South by Southwest this year, and it's a really great independent sort of coming of age story about two girls. And you know, like everybody else, I want to see Gravity. I'm not gonna look at the trailer. I'm gonna hold off as long as I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
I just saw the trailer for it last night. As well.
Yeah.
Really? Okay, Joe. Anything popping at you right now, other than
Nothing.
Gravity?
Yeah, nothing specifically. We saw some good films at First Time Fest. What was the one that I really liked from First Time Fest? Do you remember?
I mean, that's already been out.
Well, it's coming out. It'll be viewable soon. It's not viewable yet.
It's called Junction.
Junction, yeah. One of the films we saw, we've traveled to a few film festivals this year and last year, and there was a film called Junction that really stood out to me, and is very much in the vein of films I like.
What was it about? Was it a horror film?
It wasn't. It was about meth addicts that get into a really weird social situation, let's say.
Okay.
And yeah, it's beautifully shot. The characters are amazing. The acting is amazing. The writing is spot on. It's everything that I feel like an independent film should and could be. I don't know. Should
Very
about
cool.
could be.
Okay. Well, hey, look, Joe Rubenstein, Elle Schneider, guys, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us about your Digital Bolex project. Where can we go to find more about you guys online and connect with you?
DigitalBolex.com.
DigitalBolex.com.
/DigitalBolex and Twitter /DigitalBolex.
Very cool. Awesome.
And we have a very active forum, and we're on there very regularly. So if you want to come chat with us about something, we're there. And every other week we do a Ustream, so that
Awesome.
So that you can ask us questions in person.
Okay, and the schedule for that is posted on your website?
It's every other Monday. So we just did one this past Tuesday because this past Monday was Labor Day. So the next one we'll be doing is not the upcoming Monday, but the Monday after that.
Yes,
Awesome.
About 2 weeks.
Very cool. So basically, when this comes out, that's when your thing is going to be.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
today, people listening, today. Okay, very cool.
Pacific Standard Time.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
More on this episode can be found at producerspal.com/digitalbolex.